Alrighty, and we should be live. So, hey everyone, and welcome to our latest community discussion stream. Today we're going to be talking about PvE, so basically Horde and Escape. I guess we might be able to throw a little bit of campaign stuff in there, but mostly Horde and Escape. Mm-hmm. On the panel today we've got CheeseCutta, who has been on before, Embry, you've been on before, and new guest, CommanderCH. So I just wanted to go around the room and give a little introduction for everybody. You can tell people where they can find you online, as well as what do you do in PvE? Are you mostly a Horde person, an Escape person, and just how do you spend your time in PvE? So we'll go around the room, start with Cheese.
So as Chaps said, I was on the panel the last time. I mostly play Horde, but lately I've been kind of mixing. It's been a pretty steady balance of Horde and Escape. Mostly in Horde, I play Horde Frenzy. I just like the quicker match options, but when I have time, I'll go in and do some full 1 to 50 matches. But I'd say as of right now, it's a 50-50 balance between them.
All right, Commander?
Yeah, I started off playing Horde mainly, but eventually also started playing Escape, and nowadays I'm pretty much playing both of it. So it's more or less a balance between the two modes. I'm playing Horde and Horde Frenzy, depending on time available.
Okay. And Embry, what about you?
I'm Embry. I'm primarily on Twitch and Twitter. Both tags are EmbryStarred. I like doing high-level Escape and Horde. I kind of split my time in between them. I also do a lot of speedruns and for both Escape and Horde. I like picking apart both of them because there's a lot of great combinations not a lot of people think about, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess a lot of people probably know that I used to do a ton of Horde in Gears 4, did all sorts of that stuff, and I actually don't really play Horde that much in Gears 5. I got kind of burnt out in Gears 4, though I'm looking at getting back into it for Gears 5 a little bit. Operation 1, I played a ton of Escape, but I also got a little burnt out on that in Operation 1, so I really haven't been playing PvE that much. I want to get back into it, so I'm really looking forward to the discussion today, but I think it's probably going to be you three who are providing the most information on this. I don't think that... I don't really have nearly as much knowledge as you guys about it. But without further ado, let's hop into some of these discussions. Let's start with Escape, which is the new PvE mode for Gears 5. Basically, 3 people trying to escape a hive. I thought it was a great addition. I see people saying that like they hate Escape or whatever, and they want to see it removed for Gears 6 so they can focus on Horde. But I don't think Escape should go anywhere. Do you guys think that it would be worth them focusing more time on Horde and removing Escape in the future? Or
No.
No.
Escape, I see it as a diamond in the rough. There's a lot of potential, and not a lot of people get it. It's kind of like I would say it's kind of like a dungeon crawler meets Gears, is the best way to describe it. But you get the most value out of it at the higher difficulties and combining certain characters. It's like problem solving is the best way I would like to.
Yeah.
Problem solving with a lot of gore. Yeah.
I think the good thing about Escape is that you have quite a lot of different maps compared to Horde, and in Escape you have a lot more variety of how you want to play through it. There's different RNGs that you can get in each hive, and in Horde it's basically just going through waves every time, same thing.
Yeah, the RNG, like the different wave sets that you can get in... I guess there are different wave sets in Horde, but in Escape it seems to have a larger impact.
Exactly.
And a lot of people... The biggest complaint I hear about Escape is people saying they hate how you don't have any ammo. And it's like, that's kind of the...
Well, get ammo.
Yeah.
It's kind of the point of Escape, is like, it's supposed to be something difficult, and one of the difficult factors is the lack of ammo, or you needing to work in order to get that ammo.
Or use a melee character.
Or you have a character like Keegan who could give you ammo. That goes back to what I said, problem solving, but that also goes into class locks, but again, that's later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. One thing I really enjoyed about Escape was that it was that shorter experience, that like you get that PvE experience without needing to go through an entire Horde match, And I also really enjoyed the 3-player aspect to it, where you could have the 3 different classes, and it was easier to manage than having 5 different classes and you need to know what everyone is capable of. When you only have those 3 people, it was a little bit easier, and I kind of enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I when Gears 5 launched, I was excited for Horde, and to be 100% honest, I didn't think that I'd really give Escape, I'd really care, I guess. But it being 3-player, it being a quick 10-15 minute match, it really grew on me, and that, to me, that's the best thing about it. It's a little bite-sized match. And yeah, if you don't like the ammo, run Keegan or run a melee character. That's what they're there for.
I was primarily a melee character when I was playing in Operation 1. Like, I was Lonnie or Emil most of the time, and I thought it was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed that.
I mean, those were your only options back then, too. But now there's so many more.
Well, like, I didn't even play as Mac back then.
Mac was okay. I haven't touched Mac in, like, months, you know anything about it. But anyway.
So, if there's one thing that you could change about Escape, is there anything that you would change?
I definitely change. Like, I'm so sick of the ventilation and what's the other one? What's the other tile type?
Contamination chamber thing.
The ventilation tiles, as in like it's been mining and ventilation tiles.
Oh,
like,
the tile
like
sets.
the environments are starting to get old as hell for me. That's about my only gripe with it right now. And the enemy types, but I could get into enemies later. That applies to both Locust. I'm sorry, that implies Escape and Horde at the same time. And then my only other gripe is elite drones and their stopping power is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's about my only gripes of it. Otherwise, like I enjoy it as is.
So hit on the tiles thing. I've seen people recommend either like a swarm tile set, like you're underground in the swarm, or even a throwback to, we won't discuss Locust right now, but talk about the hollow.
You know,
like, but imagine like a hollow tile set, like Act 2 or 3 of Gears 1, where you're down. I think it was Act 3, where you're down in the hollow in Gears 1.
You mean Nexus?
Or yeah, in the Nexus, in like Gears 2 or Gears 1, when you're down underground, like some of those would be pretty cool tile sets that you could have instead of this like more man-made type thing.
They have mining, ventilation, and barracks. Those are the only ones they have.
It's all man-made stuff. I think having some that looked more natural would be really cool.
Yeah, and then we can't be hypocrites and be like, we want more tiles, or we just ask for more maps. It's a beggar's choosers. I get it. Like, I know the position we're in, and I know we're going to get more tiles eventually, but like,
yeah,
that's my only gripe. And the only thing that's going to solve that is time, so I'm not really going to cry about it.
Yeah, so Cheese or Commander, any things that you guys would like to see changed on Escape?
Fix the intro scene. And the Iron Man modifiers. Please fix them.
Those two.
So,
Make them skippable.
Did you hear about the Iron Man modifier?
Yeah, Michael talked about it. They're talking about moving it, I guess, out of the hives that have it or whatever, but...
Yeah, they want to change it to something else potentially, to like keep the difficulty up there, but not force it.
It's almost like that annoys people.
Yeah.
That's also a fix, I guess. No, what I would also change is the rewarding system. Not necessarily in regards to cards, but more likely into regards to the placements.
Like the leaderboards?
Because currently there's not really a big goal you can go for. You get a couple of coins and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they changed that with the recent one, the ambush or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the weapon skins they did have. The only ones they had, I would say, were quality, were the Hive Buster weapons, like that matched the Hive Buster characters, but that's about the only ones I liked out of earning all of them. And even then, they were like that little tiny in the corner. Like not a lot of people knew those were a thing. I didn't even have the full set because I didn't see what was in the corner in launch. So I don't know. They need to make it more prominent and more worthwhile, because after a while it's like, oh wow, a chalkboard Lancer. I'm really gonna bust my ass for an hour and a half to get that bitch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I see someone in chat mentioned that they like how this is a new mode that is also sort of lore friendly, but they would like to see some almost like mini campaign type things for Escape. And without needing to rely on the tile set. And I think the tile set is what allows them to pump them out. But
Yeah.
I would love to see those little mini campaign type things. I remember doing a PvE stream back in the Gears 4 days where we were talking about what we wanted to see in Gears 5. And one thing that everyone agreed with on that stream was Spartan Ops from, what was it, Halo 4?
Halo 4, yeah.
I haven't touched Halo 4.
But, like, imagine an escape,
I know it is.
instead of it being a hive, imagine a situation where you're in one of those campaign moments, or you're in a historical place from the Gears campaign, and you're working your way through there as sort of a mini hive, and then maybe a defense segment at the end. I think it would be something cool. It's not as easy as
Landdown's Locust. I was going to say Landdown would be cool.
yeah.
But that's Locust, so...
Nope.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as pumping out tile-based things, but
No.
that would have
And
been
you also have
really
to worry
be
about
kinda cool.
repetition. Yeah, you also have to worry about repetition with it.
Yeah.
See, escape intro from repetition.
Yeah.
That's the only hard part about it.
Yeah. So there's more on escape, like how the classes are and everything like that, and we're gonna hit on classes and stuff like that later. But as far as the just general escape overview type stuff, I think we're good on that, and let's move on and talk about Horde.
Mhm.
So Horde it's very similar to Gears 4.
Yep.
Minus like some tweaks. It's
Yeah,
And it will almost become identical with Operation 5.
when
Yeah,
Operation
pretty
5 comes,
much.
it'll be the classes will be the main thing separating it.
that's
And-
literally the only thing separating it right now.
Yeah.
And for me, it's weird. There's times where I don't want change, like I don't want them to change things too much. But at the same time, that's one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of Gears 5 Horde, is I spent so much time on Gears 4 Horde that this just didn't feel fresh enough to me.
Yes. I feel like... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like a big part of that is, realistically, they only added, 4 or 5 different enemy variants from Gears 4 to 5. And it's boring, flat out. But I don't know if you want to talk about enemies yet, or enemies is probably going to be the biggest thing I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about enemies. So, I think there's... Alright, we'll talk about Locust in a second, because people really want
I
Locust.
want to. I want
And I will cut you off, because I know
what
you will go off forever about Locust, so I will cut you off if you go too far. But, so Gears 3 introduced the idea of having different sets. You could have the Queen's Guard set, you could have the Lambent set, you could have the Savage set, stuff like that. And I thought that was really cool.
Factions, you mean?
What's that?
Factions, you mean?
So in Gears 3, yeah, but it was like Gears 3, if you had Savage people on Wave 1, you knew, okay, these next 10 waves are going to be Savage-type enemies, these are the types of bosses that I could have. And Gears 5 sort of does that still, but with less variety. And
3 types.
yeah, there's 3 types, but even then, it's, okay, Wave 7 we're going to have some elites, and Wave 8 is the Elite Grenadiers, and there's that crossover, and it just doesn't feel quite as fresh. So, a question I had about about the wave sets is, do you like having those wave sets, or would you prefer it random?
Random.
I like random, but also it's nice having some predictability. But maybe they could do a mix of both. Like some of it's completely random, some of it's.
Did they have something in Gears 4 that was like you could turn it on so that it was random? I could have.
No, you just kind of got what you got, because I remember doing sweep,
sworn...
and you had to pray someone had grenades right away.
I think that would be a nice setting to have, though.
Yeah.
Do you want to have sets, or do you want to have it random?
Yeah, kind of like how they do for All Founders Arena, except with enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the other aspect of enemies is the variety.
Yeah.
And if you look at the different, the specific counts of how many enemy types there are in Gears 5 versus even probably Gears 3, the enemy count probably isn't that different, but the variety within that is a lot smaller in Gears 5, I think.
Yeah.
You have way too many humanoids that is just shoot it and be done, rather than having some special mechanic with it.
Yeah. that's what I want to get into. There's 3 like official developer terms for enemy types. There's your buffers, like a Cantus or a Bastion. You have your flushers. Flushers are the things that get you out of cover. So like a ticker or a pouncer, and then there's their mirrors or pawns, which are reflections of what the player is. So you have to have a good balance of all of those, and then the problem with 4 and 5, mainly I would say is DBs, because the DBs have the exact same walking pattern and act as flushers, and like when you think Gears of War, you don't think like little robot, you think giant 400-pound brick shithouse monsters. So just going from that to just boring robots that have no emotion. I mean, robots don't have emotion, but you know what I mean. Like, it doesn't help. And then the swarm, they did add, like, they only added rejects and leeches in terms of class types, in terms, not boss types. So leeches, we already know what everyone thinks about leeches. No one likes leeches. Like, no. Like, I like them when they're a flock, if that makes sense. Like, that's fun to fight, but like a leech in itself, I hate them. And then rejects, I don't know how many people they had to go by to be like, you know what, that's a great idea. Like, that time could have been spent on something like a blood mount, but you have a little thing that you pull a battery out, and then this is what it does. That's the maximum amount of effort it puts into fighting you. It just swings its arm like that. Like, if you're going to put a flusher in, make it interesting, like a pouncer, because that's interesting to fight, or a blood mount, that's interesting to fight, or my favorite, a mauler. Those are
and the mauler and the flame boomer or flame grenadier are great examples of things from the previous game where it's kind of like a bullet sponge, but you kind of need to approach it differently.
Yeah.
And there's not enough of that in this game.
No. And then the ones they do have are, I think DR1s is their take on that, I would say. DR1s would be their tanky flushers, right? Like the oppressors.
But it's tanky, but like it's still just a bullet sponge.
Yeah. It doesn't interact heavily enough with you.
So, one thing, like, they're probably not bringing the Locust in, but think about what they could do with the existing enemies to make it more entertaining. What are your thoughts on taking, in Gears 3, we had the Locust and the Lambent as 2 different sets, and you could fight one or the other. Sometimes they would both appear, and they would fight each other. What about having the Swarm and the DBs as those 2 things? If they're on the map together, they can fight each other, and the Swarm could even take over some of the DBs and turn them and fight against you.
I think Michael Shannon touched
He hit on that briefly.
Yeah, he said the AI work would be huge for it, and my personal I would love to see that, but that being said, I would rather them use that time for developing AI into a new enemy archetype, or at least like buff up their roster and then deal with it. So like finish this, done, move on from what they have comparatively. That's just me though.
Yeah,
I think it'd be cool to watch a Guardian wipe out all the Swarm on the map if that were to happen. My opinion. Yeah.
Makes it easier for you.
Just fly around and wipe everything out. That'd be kind of cool.
What is also pretty funny, if you kill a stump, there's usually a character saying a line, "Watch out for those leeches." I found that a pretty interesting concept, and I'm curious why they didn't really implement it, that like when you kill a stump, you get leeches coming out of it. It could also be an interesting thing.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Same thing, same thing with rejects. Like rejects,
exactly.
To make them more spicy is you could turn them kind of like drudges. If you put too much damage into them, they could have mutated or something.
Yeah. And I never really confirmed this, but I think in the older games, the Cantus, when he did his Screech, that called in tickers, and it not only healed people, but I'm pretty sure more tickers came onto the map at that point.
It's been too long for me to confirm
But
that.
but yeah, I think that similar to the flock, you shoot it and some leeches come off. Like having rejects and stumps and stuff like that, having more leech. I hate leeches, but having something. I like your idea of having it mutate.
Yeah, because you kind of get glimpses of that in the campaign with the leeches.
Yeah.
Flock or whatever, they take over stuff. And then you see the Bastion, that's another example. And then the Stump, like, it's there. It writes itself. Like, you just got to think outside the creativity box of it.
So, hitting on the bright side of enemies, we have mini-bosses now.
Yes.
So the Warden is one of those few that it's kind of a bullet sponge, but he does have a different mechanic. He's very similar to the Mauler in the fact that he can defend himself and has a small vulnerable spot, at least for a while.
Comparison.
Yeah, I mean it's a melee. It's a melee character that can shield itself
and flushes you out of cover. Yeah, Warden's fun to fight. I love fighting a Warden.
I thought mini bosses in general were a great addition.
They did a good job with the bosses. That and the Stomp, the Matriarch's a boss, but I thought that was one thing they really fleshed out really well, were the bosses and mini bosses.
I would have liked to see more in terms of bosses.
Yes.
It's very similar to Gears 4. Is the only one that they added the Matriarch?
Matriarch and Flock.
Oh, and Flock.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
I'd like to see
that's
more. I'd like to see more bosses.
The last one, yeah.
I know everyone brings up Rom as a potential boss. I think
that would make everyone's day, and Dana and everyone brings it up more than we do on stream. So maybe it is happening.
That would blow people's minds.
Let's start with Locust before that.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on boss balancing?
Let's see, Matriarch is. Well, I think we all know where the Matriarch's at.
That was what I was going to say.
Fuck that thing, dude.
People that played on that dev stream asked how they felt about the Matriarch.
I know. I thought it was hilarious. Right when they started fighting, they started talking about how hard the Matriarch was, and then the fight went on for 20 minutes.
Yeah. You just need more, like... Alright, so this goes to what I was saying about character combos. Cole, he has fire bullets, right? Well, fire bullets barely do shit to it. Even if, like, in the Legacy games, if you tossed... incendiaries or mixtapes, or you use a scorcher or a hammer. It weakens it so you could kill its or like damage its skin. Matriarch barely get that option. Like I feel like somebody confirm or deny this. If you shoot a Matriarch with fire rounds or incendiary, it barely does. He still can't do ballistic damage to it, right? Unless you shoot in the back.
Yeah,
I'm fairly
sure on that. Yeah,
yeah, like it doesn't give you enough resources to deal with it. Like,
the only way is bombing it with explosives or
bleeding damage and miraculously getting behind it. Like those are really your only options.
Yep.
Like I like it as a boss. I'm like, oh, it's a spiky psycho berserker thing. I like it. But that being said, you need more tools to deal with it because even if you freeze it, it takes like what? How many to freeze it? Like the entire thing.
Use Clayton. There you go. Yeah, Clayton with blast freeze. Yes.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily use that build often, but that's true. Like, well, at least I don't. I use a different build, but
regular cry cannon. I think you need 2 chargers to freeze it.
Yeah,
that's even then, right.
Yeah, but
so so then we're talking about that Matriarch, and it's. You look at that compared to every other boss, and the Matriarch is just a new level of how hard it is compared to, and like how much of a threat it is to your base compared to every other enemy or every other boss. Right?
Yeah, you see Matriarch and you're just like, fuck.
Yeah.
The Swarmer can be tricky too.
Depends on the map, but yeah.
You usually get stuck, so then it's easy. But if it doesn't get stuck and it's relatively close to your base, then it could get messy really quickly.
So, if they were to make a change, what would you want that to be? And I'll propose it in 2 ways. One, would you want them to, like, let's say, bring the Matriarch down a bit, or modify it in some way to make it a little bit easier? Or would you want to bring the other bosses up to the Matriarch's level? What changes would you want to see to the bosses in order to make it feel more balanced?
For me, like I said, the matriarch, it'd be the ability to have more resources to deal with it. But that's what Michael Shannon was saying on stream. Also, it's like when they make a class, they want to put something that fills that role. So for all we know, there's going to be a character or class that'll come out that'll make the matriarch very subdued compared to the other ones.
But then you would need to have that class in your lobby,
Correct.
and it seems with so many classes, and they want to encourage people to play different classes. I don't think they'd want to pigeonhole people into, hey, if you want to survive the matriarch, you need to.
Yeah, you gotta have X character. Yeah.
Yeah. Hard. I would have it so it doesn't destroy your shit in one leap. That'd probably be a start. You know, like,
especially if Michael's hell bent on changing where the fabricator can be destroyed. Because if a matriarch just runs rampant, comes barreling in the base, yeah, you can forget it. It's gonna
he
get
said
destroyed.
that, and then he's like, I'm like, Michael, come on.
But like, so
Like, at least buy me dinner first, Jesus.
Yeah.
So you have both the carrier and the matriarch are very destructive to your base. Mm-hmm. And one of the key differences is the carrier, that weak spot is on the front, and it's slow to approach you. And so you can, in theory, take it out. The matriarch, its weak spot is behind it, so you either need to sacrifice your base by having it come to your base, or you need to leave your base and get away from that so it protects it and get behind it to kill it in time. And
even then, you have the ads on top of it.
Yeah, and it just makes it a lot more dangerous. And the fact that it's only damageable from behind just makes that enemy health regen thing like that's impossible.
Yeah.
And then, and again with the burning or whatever, like it does, like, unless you have a way to nerf its bulletproof armor with fire or whatever, then hell no. Like, that's what I'm saying. But then, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What were you gonna say?
I wasn't.
All right,
I do have another topic if you want to.
I've had it.
All right, and so I'm trying to think of what all the different mechanics are in Gears 5 Horde, and one of the newer ones is perks.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, is it on Tuesday? Engineers are finally getting perks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
correct.
that's a welcome change, being that engineers they weren't really nerfed, but everyone else was kind of brought up to their level.
It's in my opinion a scary change.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What is giving engineers perks or
Yes.
It's-
Hold on, let me pull up the patch notes.
especially with fortification damage, because now you deposit, they're gonna build sentries. I mean,
yeah.
everybody's scoreboard envy at times, it seems. So,
Or they're not building fortifications, but perking up, and that could be a problem.
yep, that too. I don't.
But yeah,
What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on just perks in general in the game?
I would like to tailor them instead of having what's decided for me. I don't know if that's a good idea. Because, like, I would much rather have, like, for Marcus' example, I'd rather have more bullet capacity than...
Well, I think that's TC's way of balancing the class a little bit.
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's a balancing or a preference. I don't know. But sometimes they just don't fit for the character. They changed in this Ep.4, like, where they changed a bunch of them around, and I agree with a lot of them. There's still some I'm kind of iffy about, and there's still some perks where I'm like, that really doesn't do much. Because Clayton, his ammo regen, his is really good.
The chain gun ammo regen.
Yeah, that one's really good, and that's worth getting to 100%. But if you put that on Marcus, it's like, well, it kind of works, but it's not as fast as Clayton's. So,
Yeah.
But there's an ammo economy you have to balance too, because that's what
I think
Ryan said that when he was on. Like, you have to have an ammo economy. Like, you can't give them too much. So all like weapon lockers and all that, it's not useless. But then you look at Clayton, I'm like, well, you could have Clayton have his own chain gun the whole time. So why is it that way then?
Yeah.
I think an interesting concept would also be, in case of using power to upgrade your perks, is that instead, like after each wave or after each 5 waves, you get to choose one upgrade
Yeah, that's
without using power.
that
I
was
like that.
something I proposed way back when Gears 5 launches, the concept of perk points. You
Yeah.
earn perk points after every wave, or maybe mini bosses or bosses give bonus perk points, things like that, so that you're not using your power. You can still purchase them, but everyone's sort of earning them at kind of a set rate, and you can choose what order you want to upgrade stuff in. I think I would propose going that way.
I like that.
Yeah, that's decent.
But
And I'd
go with that.
But then you don't have that trade-off of, am I upgrading myself or am I doing something for the team? So it does get rid of that trade-off.
It also depends who's in your roster too, because I was playing Master Horde the other day, and we had a Jack and a Dell on our team, and then Jack was forging. Jack's forging's ridiculous now, because I was playing Master Horde, and like by wave 40, not even wave 40, like by wave 20, we had like 40, 50k XP power. I'm like, oh, and that's without me depositing. So like, there's ways around it, but the baseline, I agree.
Yeah. And then the other. So, is there anything else you wanted to say about perks?
That's about all I got for now.
Well, the only thing I was going to say, I think some of them are talking about it in the chat, is that the perks they gave the engineers kind of don't really make a whole lot of sense, like max health. They did give fortification health and fortification damage, but why would you not give like a repair speed, an extra repair reduction cost, or something like that, just to make it more so that's more for the team too?
I mean,
why don't they get the repair cost?
Jack has a cost, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right.
Strange that the engineers don't get that one.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't they double stack it then for repair cost, because they have repair cost cards?
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess so.
that's probably why.
So the other big mechanic that was introduced and also just changed recently was the power taps.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the system of power taps? We'll just start with that.
As a whole, or what they did to them?
As a whole, do you believe that power taps are a good thing?
Yeah,
in Frenzy,
they're all right. They're all right.
Yeah, it is, especially early.
Especially in the higher difficulties, they're way better, but it's really hard to maintain all of them after a certain point. But I think that's also the idea.
The spawns can be absolute garbage. Take Bahanu for instance. You can have 3 taps spawn on one side of the map, and then you have the one single tap that will be completely on the other side of the map.
Yeah, that's one.
These things are a bit.
That's one thing I would say I want a level of predictability with, is I want to know if I drop my fabricator X, the taps are X. Like, there's sometimes where you could drop the fabricator, and then it's like, you literally dropped it right on top of a tap. Like, that's happened to me on All Founders, like, I don't know how many times. I'm like, cool. And then there's ones where you reset it and you're like, you know what, maybe if I drop it here, it's bipolar. I don't know where it's going to go. You need some sense of predictability if you're going to, like, okay, well, if they're always going to spawn here, we should set up here. You want to have some level of consistency.
So what about a system of, you know how a power tap spawns and then the next one that spawns will spawn in one of the adjacent ones? What if the first power tap that spawns is at one of the locations that is adjacent to your fabricator?
So, like, on the opposite side of the map?
No.
Or would be the nearest one to you, I guess.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the nearest one, but close to your... I guess the nearest one would work. Like, instead of the first one being completely random, it's, okay, whichever one is adjacent or close to your fabricator.
Yeah, that's what I thought they should have been when they first came out, is have the first one near or at your base and then go further and further out, because it gives you incentive to expand the base out. But, and you know, like on All Fathers, you'll sit on one side, and then of course the tap on wave 11 spawns on the opposite side, and then it's like, okay, I'm not moving the base for that.
Right.
Yeah. I don't see have someone like Marcus currently. Past Tuesday. Like, Marcus right now, and like, again, that goes to the balancing, but that's a good example of, okay, I have a character who could babysit this tap right now. Like, I don't have to worry about, like, not setting up there. I can make my way there eventually. You know, like, if you have more character builds like that, and you have the current spawn system, sure, but as is, like, with the Marcus changes and the Clayton changes, it's a lot more questionable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, So that was one idea of like the first tap spawns next year Fabricator. The other idea that I've thrown out, and I've seen a lot of other people throw out too, is have every ring spawn, and you can go stand in one and cap it, and that's the one that you captured. So like
This Gears 2 or 3 concept, I think. It was like that there. It's
oh
not a
yeah,
power tap, but
yeah,
it's
Gears 3
the-
had the command centers.
I
Exactly.
totally forgot about those.
Yeah,
I forgot about that too.
Yeah, it's you pick which ones you want.
I need to play Gears 3 again. If anyone wants to do that later, feel free.
But
I
yeah,
haven't played
it
Gears
was-
3 Horde, but I feel like if I went and played that right now, I'd feel really like, wow, this is what we have instead of 5.
And that was actually one of the questions I was going to bring up, is if you look at Gears 2, 3, 4, and 5, which Horde do you think you enjoy the most?
Gears 2.
3,
4,
3 probably, just because of the
4 was mine.
No,
Yeah.
I think for me it's 3 as well.
I think
2 was just having a mauler.
3 just like I see the influence it had on 4. If I could put 4's mechanics in 3's Embry variety, I would probably never stop playing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 3 had the enemy variety. 2 is very simplistic, which was nice. Gears 4, I thought had a great balance of freedom, but also not like overly complicated.
Yeah.
Which I feel 5 is starting to borderline that overly complicated thing, or there's too many options almost. Which is nice for replayability, but I don't know, the like analytical person in me is looking at 5 and I'm kind of overwhelmed by things.
Yeah, and then like I played Gears 2 with my brother-in-law. I've recently got him into Gears, and I'm like, oh, you should like. He barely knows anything about the Locust or anything. Like, you don't know how good you don't know how good it was back in my day. So we played Gears 2 Horde, and I'm like, I had the instinct to set up a base. It's like, wait, I don't have to do that anymore. Like, I could run around like an idiot. Like, this is weird. So, like, I enjoyed that freedom of it, and I feel like that's kind of missing in pretty much anything after Gears 2.
So, speaking of Gears 2, why have we not seen in Gears 4 or Gears 5, we have not seen a classic Horde event where everyone spawns with Lancer, Gnasher, maybe even put weapons on map to pick up. There's no Fabricator use. Like, just keep it really simple, Gears 2 style. Why have we not seen that?
Maybe it's a damage value thing. I don't know, because at the current setup as it is right now, it looks like it depends a lot on health, and maybe they could up those values, but everything's kind of zoned off into the Fabricator itself. Like, the game spawns and everything around that is centralized around the Fabricator, not the players.
That's true.
That's probably why, but I'm not going to armchair game develop. So
Yeah. It's like, I remember in Gears 4, we, actually there wasn't even an achievement for this. It was like, play with no fortifications. And we did no Fabricator use on Gears 4.
yeah, I remember that one.
And,
That's actually kind of fun.
yeah, and we've tried like no Fabricator use. Everyone's playing as a soldier with no skill cards. Basically,
Oh,
Yeah.
trying to make it Gears 2
How much
Horde.
difficulty?
I think we did that on hardcore.
I'm surprised they haven't done it at least as an event, like for
Right?
2 to 4 weeks or something like that. Like, just have it. You dropped on the map, like you said, basic loadout. You survive. That's it. I mean, you have to go 50 waves. I'm a little surprised they haven't at least brought it back as an event.
And as someone said in the chat, you get one Fabricator. That is your one boom shield that you can use.
Yeah.
Dude, don't even. It's dangerous territory. Remember I bugging him about the boom shield the other day?
Yeah.
He's like, Michael, bring me back the boom shield if you're going to do a classic Horde event.
And so that classic Horde thing kind of goes into the topic of what other, for both Horde and Escape, like, what custom match options would you guys like to see?
I had a few ideas. Because
So-
Jingle Juvies has done the hell. So,
But I think
not-
having those options of one shot, one kill Horde, Horde Frenzy, Jingle Juvies, like
Yeah.
having those available would be great. Classic Horde, having that available would be cool. We already talked about the we talked about the enemy sets. Do you want them to have sets, or do you want it to be randomized?
Yeah. So you could set the time between the waves. I know somebody was saying that they wanted longer time if you were playing solo.
Yep.
What if you could set the time, set a thing in the options? You could set the number of waves you play in. You could go as long as you want. You could go, make it shorter. You could have random boss waves or something like that if you really wanted to. I also, you already touched on Jingle Juvies. What about the Terminator event? Bring that back.
That was a really cool event.
I think that was a licensing they can only do for like.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. And they had Horde Light and Gears 4 for newcomers. Something just for newbies to play. If I'll say that. Somebody said this on the forums is a Horde Endurance, like a endless set. Just
I've been waiting.
You go till you fail, and every 10 waves, the poisons just keep going higher. It goes five times, 6 times, 7 times.
Yep, I would do that, and then
the last one I have is Michael's talked about this. This has been brought up a lot, and this is for Horde and Escape. Is have the list of all the modifiers for Horde and Escape, and you can set your custom stuff what you want. Just if you want shielded scions, you want healing scions, you want I hate to say freezing snipers, freezing grenadiers, whatever you want. You can set your modifiers however you want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you complete customization over it.
What about limitations on, we'll say, medals, daily objectives, and achievements? Would you say keep that stuff fair game, or would they have to disable it if you're making too many modifications?
I would think if you go too nuts, they'd probably end up disabling achievements or something like that, and they already put a cap. They already put caps on the XP and ribbons you get, so I would assume it'd be like that too. Do I want it that way? Of course not, but it would be that way, unfortunately.
I feel like you have to have a set threshold for it to qualify.
Yeah.
Like you can't just have one enemy and call that a wave. You have to be like, okay, you have to have this many enemies. And that's to go on.
I think the result of these customizations would be that you basically won't really earn anything. So no experience, no cards, nor anything, because it would just break the balance.
That's what's happening with Map Builder. That's why everyone kind of was like, okay.
So then the question becomes, how many people would enjoy playing those types of things? Like, if you have all of your XP and your card earning ability disabled, would people still go and play that just for fun?
That's the trade-off. That's that, and I mean the same thing with Classic Horde. I know everybody wants Classic Horde back. I love to play it, but what rewards would you get from it? Because I mean, you're not using abilities, you're not using skill cards. Would you get XP stuff?
It's still your players, and it's your time, and then some people are trying to work towards upgrading their characters.
Exactly.
And like personally, me, like if I had a choice between fun, air quote, and like my time being rewarded, like we're all adults, like we like our time being rewarded. So like I want to do 50 waves of Horde and have it mean jack diddly.
I think the only way I could see people going out of their way to play it is the Vidmaster challenge route. Maybe it's not something people are going to be playing frequently, but it's if you have these options here, tie an achievement or even a limited time challenge with some in-game reward to, hey, here's all these settings. If you set them to this certain way and you beat this, then you get a reward.
Yeah, that would be interesting too.
Let's see. So you mentioned modifiers. I got it. I can't talk about PvE without talking about difficulty settings.
Yeah.
And I know this is not something they're going to change for Gears 5. But in Gears 6, having the difficulty and the modifiers decoupled, like don't link those together.
Yes.
Oh my god, go back to the Gears 3 system, it would be such an improvement.
Yeah.
I agree.
The modifiers just like understandably they kind of work better in Escape than Horde, but for Horde's modifiers it's just no.
So one thing that like a lot of people don't understand that if if I have modifiers for more pouncers and more juvies, and I turn that on, it also increases the enemy damage and the enemy health.
Yes,
Yep.
that's the point. Yeah.
Like, that's a
Yep.
background change that, like, there's not really anything in the game to indicate that, and there's a lot of people who don't, like, think that that's, or who don't know that that's the case, and if you point it out to them, they say, no, that's not true. Like, I think that's one big issue.
In fact.
Yeah, and Horde already has the poisons that activate every 10 waves where health and damage just starts multiplying, so you got that stacked on top of it.
Like, if you're going to give me the modifiers, like, that's one thing, but if you're going to stack that on top of the modifiers, then that's a completely different thing.
I would much rather them work on having a more amount of enemies, give you that I'm talking about in Horde, give you a overwhelming sense. Give you this, as Michael said, they don't want you to be on autopilot, so have it where you can get overwhelmed and focus on that instead of focusing on spongy damage dealers that, elite drones that pound with their claw and throw flashbangs like Patrick Mahomes or whatever across the map that are just lay right in your lap. So
They just yeet them so accurately.
yeah.
And then, so I think the biggest thing for me with separating the mutators, though, is the fact that not all mutators are equal. Having more pouncers versus more juvies, I think that those should have different multipliers against your score, just like Gears 3 did. Some of them were a 2.5 times your score, some of them were 0.2 times your score. And not only does that allow the different harder modifiers to have the different multiplier, it allows for neutral ones, and most importantly, it allows for easy modifiers. Super active reload, infinite ammo, stuff like that it greatly reduces the score and your earning capability, but it's something that's, one, it's fun. Like, playing with super active reload, big head mode, and like all that stuff is fun. But when I first played Insane Horde on Gears 3, I started doing that with must active reload, vampire, and super active reload. 2 hard, 1 easy. And they almost canceled out. And that was my first experience with Insane, and I started playing Insane Horde, which is something that I never thought I would want to try before. Eventually I got used to that, and I could turn off those easy ones. I'm used to the enemy damage and stuff by now, but it's easier with super active reload. Start turning off that thing, and I work my way up to, okay, now I'm playing vanilla Insane Horde.
Yeah.
So it's like crawl, walk, run type deal for you.
Yeah, it helps ease people into things and helps them. Having the ability to turn on something to make it easier allows them to try something harder with a little bit of handicap.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. That's fair.
Yeah, I like that.
So, again, nothing for Gears 5 that, like, I think that's too ingrained in the system that they have right now. But Gears 6 in the future, like, come on, let's get these things decoupled.
Yes.
Are they going to make any systemic changes in terms of massive PvE overhauls right now? Like, I would have them focus on enemies over decoupling or whatever. Well, besides decoupling classes from characters, but I'd rather them focus on that above all else than that.
I know we haven't got to it yet, but I'll be 100% honest. I am not 100% on board and a total fan of the decoupling of classes with characters. That's just me.
Me neither.
Yeah, so let's move on to that. I do want to hit on one thing Embry said, though, and that's having the more enemies and that variety would be priority over decoupling difficulty and modifiers. Mm-hmm. And I think I would agree with that, just for the sole reason that going forward into Gear 6 in the future, if they work on that AI and get the AI and the enemies in the engine now...
That is what I've been saying for the last 2.5 years.
I mean, no, it's a ton of work.
If you work on it in Unreal Engine 4, it's good to go for the rest of the time.
But
do it.
But, like, it probably... They haven't done it. It's probably not worth doing for them. If they had to choose between doing that and the modifiers thing, yeah, it would make sense to do that. But adding more enemies versus doing a bunch of other smaller things or focusing on other parts of the game, it's probably worth them focusing on other parts of the game. I think that's why they haven't done it.
But tickers.
but yeah, so let's move in and talk about the classes. So the two things I wanted to hit on here was, one, the decoupling of classes and characters, And then two, we'll talk about the different class balances and what we think are some too weak or some too strong in that type, and how do they work together. Mm-hmm. So, Cheese, you want to start us off? You said you're not too thrilled about the decoupling, or you're worried about it.
I'm curious about this one.
I mean, the biggest one is how are they going to identify it in the lobby? That's probably my biggest thing. Let's say you have 5 Anthony Carmines in the lobby. How are they going to differentiate between them? I know Gears 4, it was easy to, each class had a symbol. That was easy. We have, 19 classes now? How are you going to differentiate that?
I think it's going to be... I think the class name and the symbol is going to be the ultimate ability.
That's what I'm figuring. And to me, it's a big thing about identifying things. I see a Dill, I see a JD, I see Kate. They join the lobby. It says that I automatically know, well, I should say I should know their card setup, what they should be running. But I know I see their level. I know that when they join mid-match. How are you going to see that? The emblems within the game. Also, the fact is that we have so many classes now, and are they going to continue to add classes now that they've done this? That's a sore point for me with that. The other thing is they haven't given a definitive answer. What's going to happen with the Halo and Terminator characters? Are you going to be able to play as Baird and use Grace's kit? Are you going to be able to play as Grace as anybody? What about with Sarah Connor, Kat, and all those? And the last point to me, and this is just me, but I feel like when you decouple that, it devalues the skins, because I'll probably never play as Lonnie, Keegan, Mac, any of these characters probably ever again. And we know how aggravating it is to change your skins. Going into a Horde match, somebody starts to match immediately. I'm not going to switch to the class that I'm playing as, if that makes sense. I don't know. There's a lot of little things for me, and I'm worried about the balancing of it and the identifying it is my biggest thing.
And I think the identity thing is one of the big perks that they have right now for having them linked, and I think that's one of the big reasons that they did it. I personally don't really have an issue with having them linked. I would prefer not to have them linked, but I don't see it as a huge deal having them linked. But I know there's a lot of people who want that freedom.
That's what I was going to say. It kind of goes back to what you've said a bunch of times, like earn and let earn.
Yeah.
Like, let people play who they want. Like, my friends, they were super, super huge Gears fans, and then they could play in Gears 4, and then Gears 5 rolled around, they didn't have Carmines or all that jazz. For Horde. And then my buddy jumps into my streams all the time, and he's like, what class should I play? And I'm like, well, you can play any class right now and level them up, and then when the change happens in Op 5, you could, switch over. He's like, well, what class is a good sniper one? I'm like, well, Foz. I'm like, oh, I hate Foz. I don't want to play as Foz. I'm like, that's his right. Like, I hate, who do I hate? Oh, I'm looking at it. I hate Kate. I hate Kate as a character. I hate her. I hate Kate. She's a useful class. I don't even want to level her up, and I know she's useful. Like, if I could play, if I could play Kate's class as Marcus, I'm happy. It's like it worked in 4. Why not 5?
So, Cheese, as someone who's not a huge fan or who is worried somewhat about the decoupling, what would you think of them keeping it decoupled except for matchmaking? If you're matchmaking, it is still linked so that you have that easy identification. Because in theory,
in public lobbies, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Because I'm thinking, if you're playing a private match, you probably are talking with the other people in your lobby, or you at least see the lobby enough ahead of time to know who is who.
I don't play enough public to give a definitive answer on that, just because I have a bad relationship with public lobbies. But if you're playing with 4 other friends and you know the setup and everything, that's fine. But usually I'm playing by myself or with one friend. So the biggest thing for me is identifying. I wasn't a huge fan of the hero system when it they announced it and it came out, but it really grew on me, especially in Escape. I think it's great. I don't know. I just think it's going to be a crap show when Op5 comes, at least the first week or so, because I'm just worried about and somebody else said something in the chat too. I wish they show you what cards people were using in the lobby. I know that's another talking point, and people have brought that up before. But I wish you could see everything. Like you could see what character, what class they're running, what their card setup is, what their card level is, and everything. So you know everything going in. But that's a different.
That'd be a lot of UI work if that were. It'd be nice to know.
Yeah. But we know how great the UI is in this anyway. So
yeah, so
we talked on that last time.
Let's hit on the UI briefly, and we'll cycle back to the character or the classes.
Okay.
Like, does anyone like the pregame UI right now?
No.
Okay.
Not
I
really.
don't.
Like,
you said it before. Gears 4 was just it's night and day.
So one thing Gears 4 didn't do is you couldn't see what cards your friends were using. I think that would be a really cool thing to have.
Yeah.
I think the way that you select cards in Gears 4 was perfectly adequate, and not only do I think that the system in Gears 5 is worse, I think it's bad and not user-friendly and should be changed. The way you select cards in Gears 5 is just garbage.
It's awful.
I also think... So, I haven't been playing Horde much, like I said, and I was trying to figure out which character I wanted to do some dailies with, and I just randomly picked Clayton the other day. I didn't really have him leveled up yet, and I looked at his perks, and I was like, holy crap, Clayton has some amazing perks. It's then that I realized you can't see your perks in the pregame lobby at all. You're selecting your classes and stuff, and you see what your passive is, your ultimate, your cards, your loadout. You can't see the perks in the lobby at all.
True. That's true.
That's a good point.
And then the other thing I'd bring up is just the server browser. If when you're going through the server browser, if you could see which characters are in a certain lobby already, that would be a really big plus. It's like, hey, I want to play as Jack. Yeah. Let me see the character emblems for who is in this and see if there's a Jack in there.
I don't know how many times the past couple of days since I've been enjoying Marcus before they snip him. I've been like, I'm going to join as Marcus. No, you're not. Back out. Okay, reset the parameters. I'm going to play as Marcus. Nope, back out.
I mean, eventually all these issues have one underlying problem, and it's balance. I mean, there's certain classes that they are sort of, in a way, mandatory in a game to make it stable, that you get through it stable.
Yeah.
And that's the main problem. If you could just pick anything and everything would somehow work, then you wouldn't have all these issues with the identification of who's who and all that stuff.
So what classes right now would you say are mandatory or close to being mandatory for a run?
Marcus.
and then definitely I'd say Coleslaw and Escape to me is OP.
And Paddock.
Coland or
is OP as well.
Yeah. Foz too, yes. Foz is really good.
Foz in Horde or Escape?
Both.
Escape.
Yeah.
But in Escape
I didn't
too.
realize how strong he was in Escape until he put some hours in the Foz.
He is
really.
Yeah,
wow.
He is really good.
I slept on. There's some characters a lot of people sleep on until this is what I love about the system is there's so many combinations people don't think about. Like for right now, a good example, Marcus, Foz, Mac, and Kagir. You put them in. Foz can keep doing X-ray the entire time. Paddock, when he has stim going, it heals everyone else's stim when he gets a kill. And then Mac, he could keep doing his bleed damage while Marcus is doing Living Legend, and he could just keep doing crazy combinations like that and break the game.
And I think that's a really cool part of Gears 5. I was saying the analytical person in me hates the variety because there's just so much to analyze, but at the same time the replay value that it makes, because just think about how many different combinations are out there that people haven't thought of. And
it's a lot of trial and error, but then you find some S-tier ones.
And there's even some characters, I'm just going to pick two at random. Let's say, maybe Kate and Paddock aren't compatible at all. in Operation 5, they could come out with a character that is that link between them and makes it like, oh my god, if you have Kate, this new person, and Paddock together, then it's an amazing combo.
That's literally how I felt with Paddock. Like,
Fun fact, they actually are compatible.
Okay.
That's why I was like, they are compatible.
And that shows that I don't play PvE right now.
I think that's why people didn't take.
PvP.
I think that's why people didn't take to the hero system at first. Is these classes weren't really fleshed out that well.
I had like
they,
6, right? Like 5.
yeah, but I mean, like the passives didn't really fit, and some of them still don't. But I know Michael's working on that. But I think these classes, there weren't enough of them, and they weren't. We didn't know all these great, cool little combinations. And now that balancing is in a much better place, I think people see it now and see what they were going for originally, anyway.
Yeah, that's the problem with Gears 5 in general. Because when we launched, we were like, what is this? And then everyone hated tiles, and then the tile horde maps came out. And then we stepped back and we're like, oh.
I mean,
Yeah,
tile
that's
horde
true.
maps. So one thing that they said about tile maps in one of the reasons map builders kind of put on hold is everything starts to look the same. And the
That's
maps can
my
get very
problem.
repetitive and boring.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's how I am with Escape right now. I love it, but like, if I never had to see another mine shaft again, I would not cry about it.
So
Well, at least they finally added more enemies. That's at least something. But
Yeah.
the map itself just still, you kind of know the layouts already.
Yeah, and it could fill you away for them.
So for those characters that you said are basically necessary, or like those top tier characters, I know there's a couple nerfs coming. Do you think any nerfs are necessary or changes to them are necessary?
As much as I love Marcus right now, I know in my heart he needed a nerf.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know.
but
I
the
think they
nerf
nerfed
did
him a
as
little
well.
too hard. Like, what is it? They changed it to .40. What is it? Does anyone have it on?
0.005 or something.
I think
Yeah. If they did it between maybe a little bit up, because like if you're level 6, if you get that card to level 6, you should be rewarded for that.
Yeah.
And like if you put the hours in to get that card to level 6, like let someone, I don't know, living legend the entire way through. They earned that, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's like you have to find a balance between fun and actual game balance.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part. Like, I get it, but then you either swing the pendulum too far or not far enough, and it's really hard to find that sweet spot. And then you have the fun part of introducing new classes, and that could potentially break everything as well. And, like, I want more classes. I have an itch for more classes now, so, like, no matter what you do, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't for some things, unfortunately.
I think in general the problem in this instance with the nerf of Marcus is I believe the main purpose was that he was supposed to be a team player, support character, so not him himself is the guy who's killing everything,
Yeah.
but instead providing the living legend for his teammates. And the way they are changing it now is they're making completely the opposite thing. They're making him an own killing machine, and like they're kind of forcing him now to play alone instead of providing this living legend to his teammates.
I mean, I would run out and kill people.
I-
That was
yeah,
Marcus as is.
We were talking about that before we went live, but I could see now after Tuesday a lot of people playing as Marcus. They're not going to be sitting on cover. They're going to hog everything on that.
Yeah,
Just,
and then
just to keep it going.
the combo with Paddock and Marcus and Cog Gear is arguably, and Keegan, is probably the best combo you can do right now. So if you guys want
False.
to play Horde, right? Okay, one of.
Yeah.
We literally one of the best one.
But that's something that's so great about the way Horde works right now is that like all three of you probably have a different combination that you think is the best.
I have like 12. I have like a lizard brain. with
There's so
combo.
much variety. So
Yeah.
all right, kind of
There
the
is.
opposite of what I was saying earlier about which characters are best. Which characters do you think need a buff? Like, what are the bottom tier characters that need a buff?
Cat, Sarah Connor.
Okay.
Ray.
I saw that
Halo
coming.
and Terminator characters. Yes.
Pretty much any marketed
Email.
character, but I feel like they just threw them in and said screw it.
So
Hon-
outside of those,
Honestly, I I wish they would give a direct answer why they won't give more cards. I know Michael said he didn't feel comfortable balancing them, but upgrade their perks or something. Give them something to make them a lot better.
They didn't want it to be pay to win, so they want those to be viable, but not
they're just
high level.
They're just
also
they're
like
bad.
the cards can be saved for new classes coming in as well. Like there could be a similar role about to be filled, and they want to use that card idea for that person. You know.
Yeah.
That's where I would put it, but I'm looking at. I don't know. I don't play engineer. Do they really need that much of a buff or no? I just don't play as engineer.
I mean,
almost ever.
I'd say so. What little Horde I did play, I was mostly engineer and played as Dell. His ultimate needs an overhaul. Like
that, I can't stand Meet My Friends anymore.
Yeah,
I can't stand. Oh God, I can't stand that line anymore. Meet My Friends.
The only time I even noticed it was decent, and this is decent, is I was playing Escape. This was like last week, and the doors are about to close, and he, Meet My Friends goes out, and it like shattered everything in there because everything was funneling in a small path. But yeah, it's bad. It's awful. It's the worst. It's probably the worst ultimate in the game.
Yeah. So were there any other, besides the promotional characters, any other low tier characters that you think need a buff of some sort?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily this would be a buff, but for Keegan, for his regen cards, it should also affect heavy weapons. I don't know if it does right now, but
it does not.
No.
That's the only
exception. I would is salvo, but it's an explosive, so.
Yeah.
But I can also see that being breaking on the flip side. So, but overall, I'm honestly impressed how well they balanced everyone.
Yeah.
They balanced 18 players, and I'm struggling as somebody who combines characters all the time to think who's ass right now. Besides the promo
I guess
character.
The worst one would be Mac outside of the promotional ones.
And
for Horde?
For Horde,
I
yes.
guess.
Or Horde only. Yeah.
Not Escape.
If you combine it with Marcus and you do the active with the Voltok and Venom cards on.
Yeah, they're buffing his bloody shot. It's still not what it was when the game launched. It used to be. Wasn't it like 100%, or was it 90 or 100?
It was ridiculous.
It's
130% bleeding power for the Voltok it was at the very beginning.
I mean, that's game breaking. That's Marcus level game.
Yeah, he's still really good in Escape, but yeah, I haven't played a whole lot of him in Horde. I don't see it personally.
I'm not a fan of that
great.
The problem is he relies on a sidearm. You cannot buy sidearms from the fabricator. The only thing you can get ammo from is from the ammo boxes.
I think they said they're looking at getting sidearms into the fab for Operation 5, right?
Yeah, this still won't really change much because then you have to constantly buy it. Why not just have it put on a weapon locker?
Neon Velocity, him and I talked about this the other day, and I know Michael's looking into it, is changing the passives. He mentioned the one that he was thinking about doing for Kate that goes more in line with their class and ability. I'll give them a ton of credit. They did really well with Cole, with Paddocks. They changed Marcus's, and what was the Clayton's was really is changed now. I think that's really good. They should do that versus damage you take increases your charge, or what is the other one?
What do you want to see? What are some examples that you would want to see for different characters?
Well, JD's, if I'm not mistaken, is every sixth headshot gives you a pilfer ammo drop or something. It's something stupid.
Throw it in the trash. That one's trash.
JD's an explosive expert. Why don't you have it where if he gets a multi-kill, a double or a triple or something, it gives everybody near him a damage buff or something besides ammo drop, a health buff or a damage buff or something along those lines. Would Foz have it where he has a card that automatically, if you run long shot handling it reloads your long shot? How about if he gets consecutive crit hits, it returns a bullet to the magazine or something?
Yeah,
that's also a versus idea I pitched.
I'm thinking of the resupply thing from Gears 4 with the soldier. You got your grenades resupplied over time.
Yeah.
I think it's called but JD, get a triple kill with a single explosive weapon and get a grenade or something like that.
Something like that.
whatever you have equipped a random explosive. I don't know,
Yeah.
like explosive ammo.
Yeah,
Like they don't have anyone who gives you explosive ammos for passive. And
I am
explosive
really
ammo.
I'm really interested to see what they do with these passives, though. I think, like you said, they've really hit them out of the park with these past few. So
Yeah,
I want to see what they do with the other guys.
They're really more fleshed out and in tune with the character's ability. I want to see more of that versus you take damage, it charges your ultimate, or you drop some pilfer ammo.
I would argue that still works for
that
Marcus.
is.
That one would have been fine for Marcus if they kept it. Because he is a tank class.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think they're going to do with these Halo characters? And the Halo characters and Terminator characters when things are decoupled. So
That's my guess.
Yeah,
I think so too.
what's that?
they were
Leave 'em
promotional. They were
Yeah, they're-
promotional characters, so they were
You're
more
happy
main
meal,
focus.
Your Happy Meal's not going to get an upgrade after a while.
Yeah.
I when things are decoupled, I'm sort of wondering if they're going to make it so that the class is now available to everybody, but that character and that character's skin is the thing that you were purchasing.
That would
maybe.
make people rage, kind of, because like,
it might.
well, $20 to play is Justin Bieber,
Yeah,
right? And imagine that being
I call her Simple Jack. So
that's a good one too.
yeah, so I don't have Simple Jack.
Oh, wow.
What's the name? Grace. I don't have Grace unlocked because I didn't purchase Grace, and I'm wondering if in Operation 5 I can use Grace's. I'm wondering if I can use Grace's stuff, but not the character.
Brain.
I hadn't heard that one. That's pretty good. So
Yeah,
but
I was thinking about that too.
God,
This
anyone
could be really, really interesting how it turns out.
Yeah.
yeah,
Honestly, if they didn't touch them or give them to anyone, I honestly would not give two shits because the cards they do. Like, Emil's probably the only one that's semi-decent out of all of them.
I think Grace a stay totally behind a paywall. The class and its skin, I think, a stay behind a paywall.
Because then,
You think so?
then you'll have people just rage right after that because now
Just
you have
because
to,
that's a purchasable, like that was one that was like
That
separately
was-
purchasable.
that, and on top
Yeah.
of it, it's just like you telling me I spent $20 on Justin Bieber,
Yeah,
and now I could use their abilities of any character. Like, I could see that not going well.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, they've made some other changes that haven't gone over great, but it's
They-
for the better. It's better in the
Yeah.
long run, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. That's where I stand with it.
they did make the hot rod skins that were purchasable only in the Op3 bundle. They did put those in the store to be purchasable with Gears coins. So
I mean, there's a balance to it, though. Like, that was a promotional event, and that would make sense for them to, like, as is, or a promotional character. But with weapon skins and stuff, I grinded my ass off to get Collector's Palace Guard at one point. And then, like, I see him in the featured section, I'm like, oh. And I didn't give two shits. It's like, you know what?
Exactly. Earn
That
and let
guy could
earn.
Yeah.
Earn and
That guy
let
could
earn.
earn. I'm happy.
Yep.
But if you touch my general skin, we have a problem. That's where I'm at.
yeah,
Like, I just want people to get, like, Gears is niche. It's not 2006 anymore. You don't want people to be like, I want this, like, well, you have to, do all this stuff for it, or, oh, you weren't here at the right time. Like, if people are coming back, let them have fun. Let them get what they want. Like, you still have your shiny items if you hit demo.
yeah.
That's where I'm at with it.
So let's see. We talked about escape, horde, classes, the lobby UI, difficulty modifiers, some custom match options. Is there anything else you guys want to hit on PvE related?
We could pitch some character or class ideas.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any ones they want to pitch?
What do you want to see for classes?
I want like a breaker maze base class. We kind of have that with Grace, but I never see anyone go out and go ham with the breaker maze.
What do you mean you kind of have that with Grace? Does she spawn with a breaker maze?
No.
No, she's bleeding damage on the mace.
Yeah, she does bleeding damage with it,
Yeah,
which is glitch still, I think, too.
Yeah.
No, they fixed that.
They did.
She's
fix
the
it.
only one-
It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no scout or tank class that really utilizes a maze, and I feel like that'd be one of those fun ones to play as. It'd be a niche one, yeah, because actually, there's wardens a fair amount in Escape too. I don't know, but like, I'd love to see a Breaker Maze type class or a heavy weapon specific type class. Like, you could kind of do that with Clayton, but like, there's some wiggle room for some of them. Ultimates, I don't even know what I would do for Ultimates for them, but those are some things I would like to see. I don't know. Anyone else have a pitch, or am I just the only one here?
I don't play it enough to have ideas right now.
I hadn't really thought about classes I like to see.
Yeah.
Because each thing has to kind of fill a role, and then you have to think of, like, I give them credit. Think of 18 ideas that'll fill a role for what you have. That's pretty goddamn hard.
Yeah.
So they get a cookie for that, because I barely came up with the Breaker Mace thing, and I think I'm a genius for it. But hey.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, it would also be nice to see if you had more classes complement each other, which I think is kind of rare currently. I mean, of course, you have like Marcus, but and then you have Cockgear, who's applying a little bit of stim. But I think it would be more fun if there would be major differences if you played with two specific classes together, or with more than two that kind of complement each other.
Yeah. Some of that. That's a good point he brought up in terms of Coggear, because Coggear and Paddock, they work really well. So if you have Coggear even shoot one person in the head, they get stimmed. And then Paddock's lead ability, as long as he's stimmed, like it's small little things like that stack together and takes trial and error. But I see what you're trying to say.
Ace mentioned a freezing class. If you got a class that was based around freezing enemies, that might be interesting.
Well, they have
like
Cole is based around burn, so yeah.
Like, what would the ultimate be like? I don't know, basically like JD's except with ice. Ice just coming out of the sky.
Yeah.
Wind flare ice, bam! There you go.
No, imagine an ultimate for a freezing one that is, you become invulnerable for 3 seconds or something like that, and then when that 3 seconds is up, you erupt in a icy explosion from you that covers an area of effect and freezes like everybody in that area.
So it's like when you get frozen from a cryo scion and you don't explode in the bad way. That's basically what you're saying.
But no, like I imagine I press my ultimate and I'm invulnerable, so I can run out into a field of enemies, and then when that countdown is up, I erupt in an icy explosion and it freezes everybody around me. And then I can run back to the base.
I love it. The problem is getting that part. That's the only thing I would be worried about.
So there's something class related that I completely forgot to bring up, and that is, it was hinted at in that dev stream with Michael that not only are they delinking the classes and characters, but it sounds like we can now have some duplicate classes. There might be some limitations around that, but you could have multiple camo scouts running around or something like that. That's going to throw off the balance a lot.
Honestly, I would. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one. Like, keep the classes as is, because then, that's
way three core classes in this game.
Yeah, but you have to think about that. Like, per one class, like let's say Cole is fine as is, and then put 3 Coles in escape. They would have to balance it. So okay, if someone has 3 Coles in escape, it would equal out to 1 current Cole in terms of output of damage. And does that make sense? Or you get what I'm trying to say with that? It's like, so they would have to weaken Cole to compensate for 3 Coles if Cole were to go into escape. They would basically have to bring everyone down to the point where it's not even fun using them as a one-on-one.
There's only 2 reasons I could really see for them allowing multiples, and one is there's people who want to play as certain classes and they hate that you're limited to one, and you go in a public match and it's, someone else is already that class, that means I can't play the thing I want to play as. Mm-hmm. So that's one reason I could see them wanting to fix it. And the other is, let's just take Cole for example. What if I want to make my own Vidmaster challenge type thing, and I want to run 5 Coles on Insane and Horde? Do something like I remember I did Jingle Juvies in Gears 4 on, I think it was Insane, and we ran all scouts, and it was actually pretty challenging. And it's when you
I said I thought it would be kind of easy, but
It's pretty easy except for every 5 waves.
oh, I just saw Horde 4.
Every 5 waves are the boss waves, where you have like tons of pouncers or tons of tri-shot dudes running around, and that became difficult.
That
So
makes
Yeah.
most of the waves were easy, but we also said no power usage. But it's like, but it's things like that where I want everyone to play as the same thing, and because classes work really well when they work together, if you have everyone playing as the same thing, you're missing out on a lot of that opportunity, and it actually makes it harder.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that this will allow for.
Mm.
I don't know if it's worth it, though, because, like you said, it completely throws off the balance. So it might be worth
and
keeping
also,
it balanced.
with your first point, it's like, well, you have a 1 in 18 plus chance of not being able to play your character in a group of 5, or 1 in 3 chance. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to get this specific... Like, it's not like, okay, if everyone was broken like Marcus and you were trying to find a lobby, like, you're going to have problems. But right now, overall, you're really not going to have that much of a problem playing, like, as whoever you want in Horde. Like, maybe sometimes, but as a whole, like, if there's a game, like, my top 3 right now are Marcus, Paddock, and Clayton. And I guarantee, like, I could swap one lobby and, like, oh, all 3 of these people are playing them. Okay, I could go to the next one, and then I'm fine. You know? Like,
Yeah.
there's always something for someone. As long as you put some time into a character and have a little fun or try stuff out, like, you still have options.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I'm ready to see a video or a clip on Twitter, YouTube, whatever, of 5 JDs calling in their artillery strike and
That's
melting
exactly what I thought.
melting matriarch instantly, and that's I don't. And then once a new class comes out, you're going to have 5 people playing as a level 1, whatever the class is when it comes out. I don't.
Yeah.
Imagine 5 Marcus's pre-patch right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like or having 5 FAWs and all of you everybody activates X-ray and everything just explodes like immediately. The balance is going to be thrown off, and I know Michael's big on this whole play as you want to play whoever you want to play, do whatever you want. He's really big on that, and that's great. I think that this Horde needs to stay locked. Just no duplicates, please.
Yeah,
That's my opinion. That's my
exactly.
opinion.
Classes should. It'd be way too much work. And again, if it's too much work, I just keep telling myself, that's time they can, work on Locust. Time they could use bringing some of those back. I want my Scorcher and my Boom Shield and my Maulers and my regular Berserkers that don't make me mad. Okay, I got it out.
So we're not going to be seeing Locust, but Michael did mention that they were looking at some other enemy types, or maybe not new enemy types, but new AI type things to bring in.
He said something about like retro Lancer, like something that doesn't have a current role, like a Lancer type drone or something like that.
Yeah. And then he also wanted to see something that maybe had a different style of movement, like an enemy that wall bounces.
That'd be interesting.
Like a Corpser would be nice.
If I had a wish list of what I want, like if it's stuck in the parameters of Swarm and DBs, even though I want the Locust really bad, if I was stuck in those parameters, I would want 2 things. I would want a better Flusher class besides Rejects and Leeches. Like the only decent one they have is Pouncers. I would want a different type of Flusher, and then I would want a actual healer type class on the enemy team, like what a Cantus would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because literally, I think the only buffer they have right now is that Bastion, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like when you saw a Cantus in the Legacy games, you're like, oh, I got to deal with that before anything else.
Yeah, you have some priority classes to deal with first.
There's no threat. Like, it's like that right now with the Bastion. It's like you have to deal with the Bastion.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, then there's also the problem where it's like, you also have to make it fun, because when you see a Mauler, it's fun to fight. If you see a Blood Mount, it's fun to fight. But when you see a Leech, you're like, fuck off, I don't want to deal with that. You have to find a balance between intimidating, fun, and fear. And, it's hard to do. And I respect it, but at the same time, fuck leeches. So-
And there's things like, so you mentioned the Bastion is that protective thing versus the Cantus in the old ones. And there's a really big difference in the fact that the Bastion is one of those things where it's almost like, oh, I need to take that out right now.
yeah.
And it can even hide itself decently well.
That Aeon is really good. I'll say that.
The Cantus was more of a like, oh, I probably want to take that out relatively soon, but it wasn't. So it was higher priority, but it wasn't like, oh my god, we need to focus on this thing.
Yeah, it's something on the spectrum between that and the Bastion, if that makes sense. Like something that's like, if you leave it out there, it's going to bite you in the ass. But if you like, you could have both. You could have the Bastion, which is you need to take care of it, or you're going to have a problem, or you got to have something like the Cantus. Like, wasn't the Armored Cantus kind of like that? The Armored Cantus? I can't remember how they played.
If it was what?
The Armored Cantus, weren't they like, didn't you have to deal with Armored Cantus in 3? I can't remember. Because a Cantus, you could kind of leave it alone. Armored Cantus.
I just remember Torquil headshotting Armored Cantus and being done with it.
I need to play 3 again. I can't remember. That's bad when I can't remember something about Gears.
An interesting concept they also introduced in Gears Tactics, but I'm not sure if I should talk about it since I don't know if you played it and if it could be a potential spoiler.
No, go ahead. Just spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't played. I personally haven't played it, but I don't care about spoilers for it. So.
Bring Gabe in, that's all I have to say. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so what's
basically the Cantus there increases the damage of the enemies as long as they're alive or as long as the Cantus is alive. So it could be an interesting concept. It doesn't work with the current Horde because the enemies are already strong enough. So
they already collect you when you're down, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think getting rid of the Scion Scream was a mistake.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I'm surprised that didn't make its way into 5.
That was literally the only Cantus-esque type thing they had, and they chucked it. And like, it was already kind of cheap having the Scion be both boomer as well as a healer, and not having a healer and a boomer separate.
Yeah,
like, you already killed some of your variety. Now you killed it more. I mean, come on, do something here.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we're going to start wrapping up, unless there's any other things you guys want to throw in here.
Locust.
And then as we're wrapping up, if the chat has any questions, just throw it in there, and we'll try and hit it on it during wrap up. So we'll go around the room in the same order. So just hit on your final thoughts on PvE. If there's any. Like, what is your favorite thing about it, and what is the thing that you would most want to see changed? And then also you can tell people where they can find you on Twitch, YouTube, stuff like that. Okay. So, Cheese, we'll start with you again.
Okay. I think the biggest thing with me, especially with Ep.4, is that the character balancing is in a great place. I think they really nailed it. I love playing. The biggest thing for me, this will kind of segue into my thoughts of changes and everything, but I really like playing Frenzy. It's a quicker mode, but I wish we had the kind of something in the middle between having a 50 wave match, a 12 wave match, is have like a 25 wave variant. I know people have seen me say this on Twitter and on Reddit, is having about an hour long match. Something they had plenty of that in Gears 4. I'm still shocked that we didn't have it in this one. They kept having the 20 wave events. Also, actually, that's another thing we didn't touch on. Is I've been an advocate of this. Is where are our Horde events? They keep saying they're coming. Where are they? So, but I mean, I'm really enjoying everything with Ep.4 now that I've had more time. A month and a half to kind of sink in and everything. It's really been a lot of fun. I wish there was more variety within the mode, which a lot of stuff that we talked about with the modifiers and different things. And I feel that it could be more rewarding as well. I think 10 cards for a 2-hour match is a little versus you could go run. I say this, everybody should know this. You could go run a quick little 5 to 7 match of the Surge or the Clock and get 4 or 5 cards immediately. Yeah. So you need a bigger balance there.
Michael said something about fixing that.
Yeah, and he also talked about kind of lowering the curve of leveling up characters, which is a good thing because it can be a grind, especially if you don't have boost, and especially we don't have those lovely 4 XP weekends. So that's pretty much my thoughts on it. You can find me at CheeseCutta on Twitch, or on Twitter, which is actually right below my lovely face, and on Twitch is the same, Twitch TV/CheeseCutta. I play in Clash Royale, some Gears 5, and then be playing Madden 21 when it comes out. So,
Right on.
All right. Commander, go ahead.
For me, the biggest missing point, although it'll probably be in a minority of that, is that Master, the highest difficulty for now, just isn't hard enough. So therefore, I kind of make up my own challenges already. We've done runs without skill cards, trying to rule out the OP characters and things like that to make it challenging.
Jesus.
Because simply...
Embry's like, damn, this guy's hardcore.
Yeah, I can actually find those on YouTube. They exist already.
But anyways, without any milk.
One goal is 5 checks that we're currently thinking of. No, anyways, I just think... Yeah, I think the point is just the highest difficulty, especially if you have 8 different difficulties in a game, it's just supposed to be extremely hard, and not everybody's supposed to beat it. But nowadays, just the people, I think they just don't want that. They want to be able to beat the hardest difficulty, even if they're not the greatest at the game. But for those guys who really want a challenge, they just don't have that challenge. They have to make up their own things. That's a little bit the missing point that I would like to have in Gears 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. You can find me as CommanderCH. Many platforms, YouTube usually, Twitch, although I'm not streaming much. I'm also on the forums on Reddit. Usually with some numbers on Xbox, but I never remember them in my name. But yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Embry, before we get to you, I want to hit on... So Neon just asked in the chat about would you all like to see skin variants such as Winter Kate, Old Man Marcus, etc. in Gears Pop make the way to Gears 5, meaning there's another Marcus, but with a different class. I would say no. I think...
That's interesting.
I don't play enough Gears Pop to answer that.
Yeah, I haven't actually played Gears Pop at all.
I played a little bit at launch, and then I'm like, oh, and then ADHD took over. So I don't know what happened to it.
Well, and I feel that when Operation 5 comes, it's going to be irrelevant anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like, it would just be a new class.
Yeah.
That concept you mentioned kinda was just implemented with Paddock. You can have him as a melee character, and you can have him as a ranged character.
Yeah. I get what you mean. Maybe. But my closing notes are they're in a really good spot right now. Op4 pretty much nailed it. The balance is really, really, really good to the point where, like I said, I'm in the menu right now and I couldn't think of much of anything. So kudos to that. The variety of the environments in Escape is something I know will be changed over time. And then flushers and buffers, they need to be way better. And Locust. More Locust, please. And you can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm on Twitter pretty much all the time. EmbryStarred, all one word. That's about all I got.
All right. And I would agree, things seem like they're fairly balanced right now. I mean, I'm not playing much personally, so it's hard for me to speak to that, but I'm on Reddit and Twitter all the time, and I'm not seeing a ton of stuff about balance, so I've got to feel that it's probably pretty balanced right now. Mm-hmm. I'd say the enemy variety thing and the difficulty modifier things are two things that I really hate, but it's not going to change. Of the things that could potentially change that I would like to see make a change, the UI is a huge one. And then the other one is just how long it takes to progress and unlock the skills and make your character viable for those harder difficulties. I feel like it just takes too long and it's kind of a turn-off for me.
I should not get greens at an inconceivable or masters on A level whatsoever.
Yeah.
I should not see any green. Nope.
Yep, agreed.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
But yeah, so I'll thank you guys all for joining. I'm gonna have all of your links to your Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and whatever all down in the description for whoever's watching this on YouTube. They can go check you guys out. I think this was a great discussion. We had some pretty good points. I've talked to Dana about this, and he mentioned on the live stream, I'm going to try and get Dana and Michael on so we can have another PvE stream and actually sort of get some Q&A going with the developers on it. I think that would be really cool, and I think we brought up some interesting points and had some questions today that would be interesting to bring up to them. Mm-hmm. So,
absolutely.
Yes. Hopefully they give us a listen to in the VOD format.
Yeah. Well, so thanks again for joining. Thanks all of you who are watching, and thank you to whoever is viewing on YouTube. We will catch you guys later. See ya.
Peace.
See you guys.
Thanks. See you guys.